NBC received a 1973 script that would have pitted America's favorite detective against a ruthless killer. Network executives panicked and locked it. Too dark for TV. They said audiences weren't ready. The true reason this Columbo episode was suppressed for 50 years was considerably worse. Today, we reveal their deception. A writer's strike halted Hollywood in early 1960, leaving two struggling screenwriters, Richard Levinson and William Link, trying to make ends meet. Instead of waiting, they devised a cunning loophole. Since live TV wasn't among the strike limits, they went for it. They wrote Enough Rope, a murder mystery for NBC's new live color show, The Chevy Mystery Show. They panicked and convinced their agency to sell it. However, that untidy writing produced something amazing. A scruffy detective named Lieutenant Columbo. They had no idea their last-ditch effort would become a pop cultural legend. Character was hardly original. The detective in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Porfiry Petrovich, inspired them. A soft-spoken, harmless-looking genius. They wanted Columbo like that. They showed the killer in the beginning instead of the end, like most stories. Watching Columbo, with his peculiarities and inquiries, progressively trap them created tension. Smart, new, and psychological, people enjoyed it. The first Columbo wasn't Peter Falk. Bert Fry played the character live on July 31, 1960. He performed well, silent and cautious, but the magic was years away. 2 years later, Thomas Mitchell played Columbo in Prescription Murder, a play based on the novel. Viewers liked it. Even if never on Broadway. That was Mitchell's last role before his death. Things changed in 1968. Prescription Murder was made into an NBC movie. Peter Falk was cast this time. Not the first choice. He was perfect for the job, but Lee J. Cobb and Bing Crosby declined. Falk gave Columbo a weird charm and razor-sharp focus. He was clean-cut in his debut film. His clothing was pressed, his hair immaculate. However, the raincoat became legendary and lasted forever. That raincoat? Falk bought it for $15 in a New York rainstorm. He wore it in the film and after. It wasn't a random coat. It was created by a luxury Spanish firm. It looked perfect to Falk. He started carrying his own clothes to set. The shoes, outfits, and automobile. He chose that rundown Peugeot. It created a real-feeling detective without a wardrobe squad. Falk's portrayal of Columbo made him more intriguing. He played mind games, not simply acted. Falk would invent lines, get sidetracked mid-scene, and distract the guilty players, which worked. Like their roles, they were irritable and apprehensive. He might show up with a shopping list or request a pencil without cause. These were tricks, not accidents. The audience knew, but the actors didn't, making Columbo more entertaining. The line, of course. One more thing. That catchphrase? It was hardly a genius plan. Levinson and Link said they added it because a scene was too brief to retype. Columbo was brought back into the room to say it. Thus began TV's most famous detective move. This clumsy fix became the killer's trademark moment, typically bringing him down. The Columbo character was so distinctive that his name was unknown. Viewers never learned his first name for years. Frank Columbo appeared on hazy badges, but his makers denied giving him a first name. They wanted it to remain thus. When trivia writer Fred Worth invented Philip Columbo to catch copycats in Trivial Pursuit fell for it, he sued them. He lost, but the tale persisted. Everyone called Columbo Lieutenant at his nephew's wedding. Imagine living a life where your family never calls you by name. Also intense was the casting procedure behind the scenes. Guest performers played the killers in each episode, and the team considered dozens of actors. They considered Orson Welles and Peter Sellers for one role. They passed because Sellers demanded too much. Falk rejected certain ideas. He vetoed Danny Kaye without explanation. When Columbo was developed in 1971, NBC officials were apprehensive. Actually, they worried. Television was regulated then. The hero has to arrive quickly or viewers would switch channels. Columbo creators Richard Levinson and William Link didn't care about restrictions. The audience waited over 30 minutes for Columbo. That delay was unprecedented, and executives labeled it the longest stage wait in television history. They believed viewers would get bored and quit, but what happened next changed detective fiction. The show revealed the killer immediately, unlike a traditional whodunit. That was the twist. You witnessed the murder. After seeing how neatly the plan was put together, you sat back to observe how this quiet, awkward detective would progressively unravel that strategy. Despite expectations, knowing the killer kept the suspense going. The intensity increased. He focused on how to catch them, not if. Columbo didn't chase cars or use weapons. He employed courteous questions, common sense, and an eye for minor details like a wine glass smear or a low thermostat. However, Columbo was powerful for another reason. The topic was class. Lacking wealth, Columbo he drove a beat-up automobile, wore the same wrinkled coat every day, smoked cheap smokes, and talked about his wife incessantly. He pursued surgeons, actors, CEOs, generals, and others who believed they were too important to be captured. Columbo never honored them. He often unnerved them. He'd ask how much their pricey painting cost or say his wife had something comparable at home to watch how they reacted. The show gently showed how the privileged thought they were untouchable and Columbo made sure they weren't. Once, NBC intervened. They forced the creators to change the format after a few episodes. They wanted Columbo earlier and more traditional storytelling, but the team refused. Levinson, Link, Finnerman, and Falk all defended themselves. Quitting before changing the show's heart was their plan. A tremendous risk paid off. Fans adored it. Executives withdrew when ratings rose. Columbo was unique from its September 15, 1971 launch. NBC showed it with other detective shows in its mystery movie rotation. But it became popular fast. Peter Falk's performance proved crucial. That season, he earned Emmy. He received 4 additional awards and a Golden Globe for the part. Columbo was known for his disheveled charm and cautious delivery. He was understated. It wasn't necessary. One more question and the killer's life fell apart. With NBC's rotating approach, episodes might last 90 minutes, giving writers more time to establish tension and character. More space made Columbo feel like a movie than TV. It was so successful that NBC moved it to Sunday nights, where it dominated ratings. Columbo became a hit and primetime anchor. Nobody anticipated the show to go that far. The US didn't keep it. Went worldwide. Syndicated in 44 countries, it had admirers worldwide. Fans created a Columbo statue in Hungary. After the show finished in Romania, people were so outraged that Peter Falk had to record a statement to say it wasn't censored. Even decades later, the BBC declared it timeless. People everywhere valued Columbo's peaceful tenacity, sense of justice, and joy in bringing down pompous crooks. Columbo honored guest stars with arresting killers. Famous actors played the killer. Jack Cassidy done it 3 times. Shatner completed it twice. Appearances earned Patrick McGoohan Emmys. In one episode, Leonard Nimoy, Robert Culp, George Hamilton, and Martin Landau played double killers. It showcased talent. The show attracted excellence behind the scenes. Spielberg directed the first regular episode at 24. This guy is too good for Columbo, Peter Falk understood immediately. Hollywood experienced something odd in July 1973. Brian De Palma, a rising director who hates TV, wrote a Columbo episode. Sisters, De Palma's dark thriller, showed his love of Hitchcock-style narrative. Because Columbo pleased him, he paired up with his friend Jay Cox, a noted film critic, and submitted a script anonymously. Even stealing Joseph P. Gillis from Sunset Boulevard, they gave Jay a bogus name like a private joke. It was even more astonishing that this happened during a writer's strike when the show needed content. Normally a TV hater, De Palma entered a bad world. This scruffy detective drama was different to him. They invented a fantastic tale. Quentin Lee, who resembled himself on Truman Capote, murders a talk show presenter and films it. Not simply a murder, but a message. Lee intended to show that a crime without purpose may be perfect. He tosses a dart at a list of celebrities in his building and picks a cheap, bogus one. He considers them a public zircon, a false diamond, worth little. He makes a video on his twisted plot and involves Columbo without the detective knowing, making it even darker. Getting meta fast. 3 students follow Columbo with cameras, one named Spielberg, a nod to the real Spielberg, who directed an early episode. Timing wasn't De Palma's friend. The strike pushed the show behind schedule, leaving producers scrambling. Stephen J. Cannell's double exposure was also submitted during the strike. Shooting was faster and the villain employed subliminal thoughts to kill. Cool idea, but simpler to manage on a deadline. De Palma's script was more complex, with visual effects and multiple plots. The producers enjoyed it, maybe more than other of their programs, but they didn't have time or resources. The Mind Over Mayhem episode used De Palma's film student premise. Even the character Steven Spielberg, spelled differently, was in homage to De Palma's writing. Tone was the issue. Columbo's killers were usually self-centered. Money, vengeance, power. None of that mattered to De Palma's villain. He wants to murder for art. As in Hitchcock's Robe, the killers thought they were smarter than everyone else. But Columbo wasn't about that. The makers undoubtedly thought viewers wouldn't like a chilly, odd figure. As usual, De Palma's themes of monitoring people through cameras and blurring truth and performance were striking, but they didn't match the show's homey Sunday evening ambience. Some considered John Lithgow for the lead, but they feared he was too large and menacing for TV. Finally, the episode was cancelled. Columbo had a formula that succeeded despite production difficulties and creative conflicts. Initial footage shows the killer. The mystery is always how Columbo will catch them, not who did it. Slow, intelligent, and polite, he always found the truth. Everything changed in 1992 when There Was No Time to Die. No murder or calm inquiry began, just fear, screaming, chloroform, and a horrific honeymoon kidnapping. This episode felt more like a horror flick than Columbo. Instead of quiet deduction, Columbo joined a police unit, brandished a gun, and rushed. Final minutes ended in gunfire. Nothing like Columbo fans knew. Some called it daring. The worst episode ever, according to most. However, the show took other odd turns. After 11 years, Columbo returned with Murder, Smoke, and Shadows in 1989. This Hollywood episode was absurdly theatrical. Flashy young film director was the villain, who was more of a Spielberg parody than a menace. Over 10 minutes were spent on Columbo bouncing on a waterbed. The big reveal, costumed police officers emerged. Like a stage show with spotlights and music. Rather than a mystery, it seemed funny. Some supporters later supported it compared to the Rebirth years. Murder, a self-portrait, and more strangeness followed that year. Columbo solved the case by analyzing the victim's bizarre dreams. Meat in a sink, pocket watches and teacups, and a French uncle who meant monocle were seen. Narcissistic artist killer. Live with his current and prior wives till one died. The story was full of symbolism and psychology but made little sense. Columbo now knew more than a therapist, and the suppressed memories were false. Despite the plot, the portrait he received was memorable. In 2003, Columbo investigated raves. Yep, raves. Columbo likes the nightlife. The final episode aimed to modernize the ragged detective. The peaceful living rooms and cigar smoke were replaced with loud music, neon lights, and sweaty dancers. Columbo wore a feather boa, explored nightclubs, and hand-retrieved a toenail clipping from a toilet. The plot involved a murder, cover-up, and tabloid journalist. Most remember the episode's bizarre feel. It was strange, awkward, and fascinating. Some viewers liked his modernization. Others missed the past. Not all weird mistakes were intentional. The 1972 film Blueprint for Murder gave Peter Falk his directorial debut. The shoot was hard. The producers gave him an episode set at a real building site to make it harder, which frustrated him. Falk asked Spielberg and Cassavetes for help and paid extras when the studio refused. The outcome was uneven. Pacing was inconsistent and no murder was shown. Initially fast, then slow. Even the music seemed strange. With the Brahms concerto repeating. Falk's acting suffered too. He never directed another episode since juggling two duties was difficult. After Peter Falk played Columbo in 2003's Columbo Likes the Nightlife, most fans thought the series was over. That wasn't the plan behind the scenes. Universal Studios secretly began filming the 70th and final episode in 2007. It was originally called Hear No Evil, but Columbo's last case clarified it. Not just another mystery. A goodbye was coming. Falk was almost 80 and didn't want to retire. He wanted to depart on stage gracefully. One last time in the rumpled coat that made him famous. He wrote 102-page scripts to properly end the book on Columbo. Timing was excellent. The character's 1968 debut was 40 years ago. As usual, the tale was brilliant. It included a high-tech murder using sound, but with the show's trademark psychological twists. Columbo noticed a faint clicking sound that slowly revealed the killer's plan. The plot includes Larry King playing himself to make it extra spectacular. The cameo was supposed to be enjoyable. Similar like when Johnny Cash or Janet Leigh appeared suddenly. The episode felt like Columbo from start to finish. Smart, slow-burning, and full of small moments that added up. A full script and Falk were ready, but the project hit a wall. ABC, which had carried Columbo for years, declined. The reason? Falk's age. Network executives rejected a TV movie featuring an 80-year-old lead. Charles Angle, a decision-maker, plainly stated that it didn't matter if Falk had portrayed Columbo into his 70s and still kept an audience or that Columbo's appeal was being underestimated. The networks resisted. Universal sought. Foreign investors expecting the detective's global appeal would suffice. It lost steam without a large U.S. network. The hardest hit followed. Falk's health declined in 2007. Friends noticed differences after his dental operations. His memory deteriorated. It was confirmed soon after. Falk had Alzheimer's symptoms. The diagnosis was revealed in 2008. By then, the devastation was obvious. The man who portrayed Columbo better than anybody else on TV suddenly forgot who he was. His daughter testified in court that he no longer recognized her. It was clear there would be no finale by 2009. The well-prepared farewell was never captured. In 2011, Peter Falk died. At 83. Pneumonia and Alzheimer's killed him and Columbo. Peter Falk appeared like a worn, wrinkled detective in a rumpled coat, yet he took his work more seriously than anybody else. Falk was Columbo, not just a character. He set his own clothes. Made sure every element was perfect and refused to rush, even if it cost the studio. A 10-day shoot could take 2 weeks if Falk paused mid-scene to rewrite a sentence or investigate a character's motivation. Pushing him typically backfired. Even studio executives avoided fighting. The iconic raincoat? Not from wardrobe, his. Calculated rambling and meandering. Falk kept actors guessing, which worked to keep reactions real. Columbo felt like a friend, even though you didn't know what drove him. Not everyone liked Falk. Danny Kaye was considered for negative reactions casting. Most people would have taken the gamble on a big star. Falk flatly rejected. It's the only time he stopped someone from appearing on the show, for unknown reasons. Some believe it was because Falk didn't want Columbo to become a joke after working together in comedy. Others say it was a style clash. Falk wouldn't budge. In his show, if someone didn't fit, they were out. Simply put. While Falk fought for control on site, the writers faced a different horror. The murder at the start of Columbo set it apart from other crime dramas. Writing backward to generate tension without a surprise ending was necessary after that twist. Many found it exhausting. NBC recruited 60 renowned writers to watch a pilot, but only 2 wanted to write for it. That was hard. The writer's room became a pressure cooker. They brainstormed for days, even snatching passers-by to assist correct a plot. Larry Cohen stopped by to say hey and departed with a writing job after solving a story challenge no one else could. When NBC made episodes 2 hours long, things became worse. To occupy time, scripts had meaningless scenes. And many believed quality declined. So something crazy happened. Columbo exploded anew with a new generation decades later. Show streaming increased 300% between 2020 and 2023. Columbo's calm, careful approach comforted epidemic victims at home. Younger viewers liked the show's anti-rich tone. Since most killers were upper-class snobs who felt invincible. With his worn sneakers and quiet voice, Columbo kept dragging them down. Social media helps. TikTok, Twitter, and Among Us fan mods all showed affection for the scruffy investigator who always got his man. Then came the memes. Columbo edits appeared everywhere. He was portrayed as a 3-inch policeman solving minor crimes on Twitter. A parody film had him analyzing Tumblr posts, and fans loved his oddities. The Lost Wife, the old Peugeot, the famous line, one more thing. He was more popular than ever online without altering anything. He remained humble genius. Captured killers with kindness and misunderstanding. Peter Falk kept that role. He won 5 Emmys and continued to improve the persona for decades. People of all eras dispute whether Columbo was lucky or intelligent. Maybe both. That was its beauty. Whether he was fumbling or feigning was unclear. He had you before you realized it.